After you turn your microphone on.
Is that better? Oh, that's on. That is hot. Sorry. And we're going to start with the pledge and invocation led by Chairman Duncan.
Please pray with me. Most gracious Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings you give Columbia County, state of Georgia, and the United States of America. I pray that you be with us during the discussions, that, Father, that may we honor you with all the decisions to be made, but we'll also, you say that you'll give wisdom if asked. And so, Father, we do ask for wisdom to make the right decisions. I ask these things in Christ's name, amen. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, under God.
Hey, bear with me as I work through the agenda here. I wasn't expecting to chair this committee meeting. Do we have minutes of the previous meeting, Patrice? All right, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, accepted. And on the debate agenda for this meeting, new business, we have reports from management services.
Let Mr. Evans come up and present the order, whoever Mr. Evans chooses to.
We're going to continue to double team you guys.
Okay.
Are you double charging us, Rick? As long as you're not double charging, you can bring the whole team.
That was really ugly.
Sorry.
Funny, though.
John's going to start us off this morning.
All right, so we have 3 reports we're presenting to you this morning. We're going to start off with the Broadband Department, which should be the first of the reports in your package. There is a summary of results on page 3, and the first thing you're going to see is what we are calling our general observations. Currently, all the fiber splices in the county are being tracked using PowerPoint slides. Slides containing the location and configuration of all these broadband fiber splices. For our discussions with Broadband Utility, they feel that they would be better served by a more specific broadband infrastructure software package.
Don't we have some type of document management system?
I was going to actually say, rather than with me being more of an expert in accounting than in broadband infrastructure, I was going to point out the management response on page 4 of the report, which goes into better detail, and I wanted to recommend that you give that a read for your consideration. We agree that using a more custom-tailored software designed for managing this infrastructure would be more efficient, beneficial. Moving on from the general observations, on page 5, we also performed site visits. Apparently there are 7 broadband network towers throughout the county. We haphazardly selected 2 of those and visited them on May 15th. We had noticed no irregularities at the site visits. Everything seemed to be in order. We also tested fees, as a portion of the department's revenue comes from third-party users. And we haphazardly selected 10 deposits, traced that back to supporting documentation, and also to clearing the bank statement with no exceptions noted there either. We also looked at capital asset purchases, purchase requisitions, purchase card transactions, selecting a variety of transactions, including 20 purchase orders, tracing those back to supporting documentation and to clearing the bank statement without any exceptions. We also, you'll see on page 8, reviewed timesheets. And finally, on page 9, we performed some inventory procedures. There is a little bit of inventory at the broadband utility. It is being tracked regularly. There's an inventory sheet that's maintained. We obtained this inventory sheet. We haphazardly made selections, recounted those items, and had no exceptions. So that is the broadband utility. Are there any questions about that before we move on to procurement?
No, Mr. Duncan, let me elaborate a little bit on your question. Reference, is there a tracking system? There are tracking systems within the county, but because of the nature of broadband and the fiber tracking, splicing, assets that are out there, they'll consider all options before the system that best fits those needs. Because it's so highly specialized, it may be that a specialized software is needed and you can't just use City. It obviously has some applications, but I know Mr. Sparrow, when he looks at all the options, will choose the one that does the job the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up is the Procurement Department. Being partial to the Accounting Department, this is probably the next most important department within the county. It controls how you spend your money, citizens' resources. So let's take a look at it. There were several items that are covered under the Procurement Department. That's procurement thresholds, purchase card transactions, purchase requisitions, vendor analysis, your salvage and surplus and how that's handled, warehousing of inventory items like paper goods, bottled water, those kind of things, and employee timesheets. It is a very important function, and there are three categories that generally looked at. They decide how to monitor expenditure. One is for 2,000 and under, no bid requirements, there are no multiple quotes from outside parties. Level 2 is 2,000 to 2,000 to 20,000, and those require 3 to 5 quotes. And then there's the third level, which is 20,000 and up, which requires a proposal and bid format. Now, there are some exceptions to that. We looked at those exceptions, like emergency purchases, petty cash expenditures, inventory of supplies, sole source purchases, purchasing cards, contracts, computer hardware and software purchases sometimes that they order ahead of time, water utility overpayments. Those items are excluded from the process. We only found one instance of where there was undocumented or properly documented bids or quotes received. Turns out they were able to locate those quotes. They just were not put in the more of a documentation issue. So our recommendation was just to make sure that all those quotes put into the system for documentation. That was the only exception. I'll ask for any questions, any concerns. Okay, as we look across all the departments when we do our audits, we look at this process. In the past, we have found some instances where grouping of bids that are under the 2,000, or excuse me, they spread the bids out multiple times to avoid
Keep them small.
avoid getting the quotes in the bids. But we found none of that in this, although it has come up in parking lot lights one time. Overall, audit, and we didn't find any instances in our sample not get the appropriate bids or quotes.
How many transactions were in the pool that you were sampling from? Thousands?
Ooh, a couple of different.
I mean, just a roundabout number. We're talking about 5,000 transactions.
Sample size varies depending upon the procedure, from 25 to, in one case, when looking at the potential for splitting transactions, we actually looked at every vendor with an average amount less than $2,000, then made a pivot table and summarized that to see which of those vendors they have small average transactions actually add up to a significant amount. We took that data, sampled from that, and that was when we actually did not find any instances of what we were talking about earlier, this sort of invoice splitting. So there are a couple of different approaches, and there are some sample sizes that are noted in the full report. So it kind of depends on the process.
I was just wondering about how many hundreds of transactions or thousands of transactions we were talking about, to only find one small item that just didn't have the paperwork attached to it. That's huge, that, you know, our folks have their stuff in order that well. That speaks very highly of our staff.
Well, and consider that we really are looking at the purchasing department every time we look at another department, because we're testing that same process.
Yep.
This was just full-on audit of the procurement department itself.
That's great. Oh, good job
Really?
to y'all and good job to the staff. That's, like I said, that speaks very highly.
And normally when we find a deviation, it's a deviation because of one of those exceptions, where it's either emergency purchase or it's a sole source provider or something like that. Rarely do we find a case tried to slide in under
Something
the
egregious that would be
2,000
awful, that's right.
multiple times.
Hey.
That's why we hit that under 2,000 pretty hard, to group any of those that.
Y'all have any questions?
My apologies. I have a teenage daughter. That's it. That's the whole use, reason,
They
explanation.
understand. I'm going to turn the
lamb is
gavel
fine.
over to Commissioner Allen. We have just finished the G1A1B Procurement Department, ready for Streetlight Fund.
All right.
Yes, I'm going to discuss the Streetlight Fund with y'all this morning. Now, this is a little bit shorter report, perhaps, or there certainly are some more graphs and charts in this report relative to what we normally do. We did look at both the revenue cycle and expense cycle. The Streetlight Fund manages the installation of residential and commercial streetlights around the county. Also manages the monthly utility costs for those lights, and then turns around and is in charge of collecting the proceeds of the monthly property tax bill for the lights, as well as any charges to developers for putting these lights up. So just the revenue cycle, we actually obtained a file from the Streetlight Fund that showed all the installations of streetlights during the period we looked at, which I believe was the entire fiscal year of 2019, ending 6/30/19. We selected several of those and traced them back to the completed petition from the property owners or from the request from the developers, traced that back to approval by the Board of Commissioners, ultimately back to the fees being paid, which we traced to the bank statement. We found no exceptions in any of those transactions. We also looked at the expense cycle, that is the cost of installing the lights and the cost of paying the utility bills. Here we did something similar to what I was describing in the Procurement Department, where we set a threshold of recurring utility expenditures greater than $50,000, and we selected all of those for testing, and then 10 additional under that $50,000 level. Traced all of these selected utility expenditures back to the Georgia Power invoices, back to clearing the bank statement, and again, no exceptions noted in any of the revenues or expenditures of the Streetlight Fund. Now, if you look, pardon me, if you look inside your Streetlight Fund report, as you get to pages 8 and 9, you'll find some additional analysis. We have looked at the Streetlight Fund now 3 times over the last 9 years, basically every 3 years. And we've collected data going back 15 years. And so I put together a small chart here to give you a visual representation on page 8 of the revenues versus expenses. And you can see that back in between 2005 to 2010, there was a time when expenses exceeded revenues, which is not a good place to be. Over the years, though, more often than not, revenues have exceeded expenses just a little better than break even, which is probably where you want to be. So again, this is just raw data that we've accumulated over the last several years, going back 15 years for your analysis. So you can see that the Streetlight Fund seems to be covering its expenses.
So this is a composite of the previous installation and utility.
Yes. So this is total revenues. So that is revenues from charging, say, the developers, plus the revenues that are charged to the homeowners. And total expenses, so that's the expense of installing plus the expense of utility cost.
Cost of installation.
Right, so this is a composite of the previous two graphs, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yes, yes. So the Streetlight Fund does sort of lose money on the installations. Altogether, though, it seems to be working out fine.
Great.
On the following page, page 9, I took some of this historical data and then tried to project out for the next 5 years and say, if most of this holds steady, that is basically the number of additional streetlights added each year, the amount we're getting from the developers, so on and so forth. But then in kind of a worst-case scenario, based on a little bit of research that I did on changes in utility cost, I plugged in a 3% annual increase in utility cost. And with that increase, I still was able to project that the Streetlight Fund would continue to do a little bit better than break even and continue to have revenues exceed. Any questions about analysis?
Although diminishing over the next 5 years.
Yes, but I would say.
That's assuming you don't raise your fee.
Right.
Mhm. They haven't really.
Gone up.
And like I said, I did a little bit of research on the history of increases in utility costs. This 3% is not likely to occur, but a possibility.
Prefer to be conservative and
Right.
Hopefully they will.
Fire it up. Are there any other questions about the Streetlight Fund and the analysis we did there, or the testing of revenues and?
No questions.
Okay. So just to let you know what we are working on currently, we have completed our field work and analysis for the recycling center. We've been out there recently. Our reporting and our quality control processes are still going on for that report, and I expect to bring that to you next quarter. We have also been looking at purchase cards countywide. We've done several procedures on this, and our analysis is nearly complete, and we'll be hopefully presenting that report to you next quarter to let you know our findings countywide on purchase cards. We also are at the Sheriff's Department today, beginning field work for that internal audit, and that may be delivered to you next quarter. Then we're continuing to work on the lodging tax internal audit. We started this one a while back and had planned to deliver it by now, but we've had not perfect cooperation from some of our selected hotels. And we've been in touch with Leanne about that. So that's going on. There are various other projects that have been approved for this upcoming quarter, and we continue to work hard to provide those internal audit reports to you.
Are these the same hotels we traditionally have problems with? Seems like every time we do this, there's always outliers.
It comes up.
I have drafted a letter to send to all of our hotels, and I'm actually attaching a copy of the state code, which cites that are able to audit them. We cannot request that they send information to us, but we can go and look at their information at their site. So I'm sending that out this week.
Continue to grow, I think it's very important that we do that. I mean, we have almost 1,200 hotel rooms in Columbia County, which is a surprise to a lot of folks. But that's, you know, that's potential for sales tax revenue, hotel motel tax coming in, and we need to keep an eye on that. Burdening one over.
Are there any
Opportunity.
penalties for folks who don't comply?
The law does not provide for that, I don't believe, and I could, maybe Mr. Driver knows, but I don't, it just,
Righty.
Why every time this comes up, it's always.
They tell us we're number one in their heart.
Keep gently nudging, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the
No, sir.
comments, public?
Oh,
Brought it to order.
we don't need a motion to dismiss. The Audit Committee meeting is dismissed. We'll
Perfect.
come back together in 5 minutes.
Sure.
For the next meeting.
Request to speak. Like to call to order the Management and Internal Services Committee for Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. Assuming that the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance have already been taken care of. Oh, thank you. We'll move through approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All right. Approval of this morning's agenda. Any adjustments or changes?
Changes, Mr. Chairman.
We'll move straight on through into the debate agenda then. Mr. Johnson. Oh, I apologize. We
No
do have a
presentation.
presentation. This is a rarity for us in committee. I'm sorry. Ms. Brittany Burnett with United Way. I'm sorry, Ms. Burnett. I apologize. They even pointed it out to me a minute ago.
He has a teenage daughter.
I have a an 8-year-old, so I was like, my
Coming.
turn's coming.
Yeah, add them together, and that's,
Don't become a parent until they turn 16.
The struggle is real.
oh, boy. Yeah, you can.
Oh, thank you.
I'll be quick this morning. Thank you for giving. I've got a couple coming around to you, but my name is Brittany Burnett, and I've got the United Way. And I've now lived.
Yes, ma'am, just please, and actually state your name and address and your
Is
organization.
that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And do it for the record.
So my name is Brittany Burnett. I've got the pleasure to be the president and CEO of Your United Way here in the CSRA. I've now lived here in Columbia County for 13 full months. So I am happy to now know my way around, and I don't have to use my GPS everywhere I go. But the reason I'm here today is because first I want to thank you and the entire county for your continued support of United Way. And the packet that I passed around just a minute ago that you've got just speaks to some of the impact of what the giving has done here in our entire region. So one question I continually get from people, they'll say, I've heard of United Way, but what is it you do again? Or I've heard of United Way, I've seen your logo, or I've been giving to United Way for many years, and I still don't really know what you do. And so what we do is here at United Way of the CSRA, we actually have a 12-county footprint. And so the gifts that you make here actually extend with Richmond, Columbia, Burke, Lincoln. I mean, we have a 12-county footprint. So if you work in this community, but you maybe live in another county, we're impacting your county too. And what makes United Way unique is that we take our direction from the community and we actually work on the issues that our community has said are most important. So we've got an initiative right now that's all around leading families forward because we want to make sure that our kids are prepared for school when they enter kindergarten that very first day. We want to be sure they're in safe and structured after-school programs so they're not getting in trouble after school during those hours where many parents are not at home. We want to be sure we've got our workforce is work-ready, and we want to be sure our residents have access to resources, which includes transportation, health resources, food, and et cetera. And so the little, there's like an insert in your folder, it's not in a pocket, but it just speaks to some of the impact of where your giving to United Way has impacted residents right here in Columbia County. So we support organizations like Columbia County Community Connections, and it's Red Cross, and it's Boys and Girl Scouts, and it's many organizations that they might have, their headquarters might be located a few miles away from here in Richmond County, but the services they provide are also right here in Columbia County. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that, and knowing that because of the county's support to United Way, you can look that over 58% of the kids that we're supporting through just one of our programs at Columbia County Community Connections, we're seeing they had better school attendance when, of course, when they've got food, and they're performing better. So we know that the work that's happening in this county is critical, and we also know that we cannot continue to do this work without the support of everyone here from the county. We have a resource that I want to be sure all of you know about as you go back to your departments, which is United Way 211. And you all know if there is a medical emergency, you pick up that phone and you call 911. But if there is a community emergency, you pick up that phone and you call 211. And we have live agents who are available 24/7 to hear what the needs are here in our community. And in Columbia County alone last year, we received over 1,000 phone calls from residents right here in our county for people that needed help. And then we're able to provide resources and referrals to organizations that can help out with their particular need. And our highest number of calls are coming from people who need rent and utilities assistance. So the needs are not going away, as we know our community is continuing to grow, and the needs are continuing to grow as well. And so we know that with the county's continued support, we can continue to meet those increasing needs every year. And so I'm hoping that this year, I know that your official United Way campaign will start in about a week. We're doing some online giving options to mostly remove the paper from flying around everywhere. And you'll get that link that you can actually send off to your department so they can choose to give a payroll deduction gift, which is always the easiest. People can select $1 a paycheck, $5 a paycheck, and the deduction starts next January. Or people can give a one-time $25, $50, $100 gift and know that that is making an impact. So what I've got in your folder gives a more of an overview about what we do at United Way, but it also gives, there's a one-pager that says, let us know when your team is having a meeting. Let us come and talk to your staff about the work that's happening right here in our county. We can be in and out in 5 minutes. If you have an existing safety meeting, management meeting, team meeting, invite us to come in, and then we'll be happy to talk about the work and the importance of the continued support from the county. But I wanted you to know about the impact that's currently happening here because of your giving, and hopefully you all learned something new about United Way 211, which is the number you call when you need help. And some of you might say, I don't know if I'm ever going to call that number. Well, if you want to give help, you also call 211. So if you say, I have extra time on Wednesday night and I want to help somebody and I don't know who needs my help, you call 211. We will tell you who could use your help on a Wednesday night. If you want to donate your refrigerator and you don't know who could take it and who can come and haul it off for you, call 211. We'll tell you who can take it. So this is a service for everybody. There's a card in your folder. If you want us to bring you stacks of cards, we'll bring you stacks of cards to talk about yet another service that's available here because of your support. So I hope to see you a lot at other team meetings. I'm happy to be a resident here in Columbia County, and thanks so much for all of your continued support.
I have a quick question for the 211. Obviously, that's for your service area, but if you're in Athens and you dial 211, it goes to the Athens one?
Exactly.
Or Macon goes to Macon?
Exactly.
That's-
So 211's been around for about 20 years. It started in Atlanta as kind of the first call for help, and now over 99% of the country has access to a 211. So if you've got family in Athens or in Seattle or in Toledo or in Baltimore,
Have their
you
own.
tell them, call 211, and they'll be put in touch with their local United Way, which has the resources, the resources for that particular community. So I don't need you all to be experts on all the community resources. That's what we do. So you do what you do best, and you call 211 when you need help.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thank you for the presentation and all the work you do. And we're glad to have you as a resident. All right. With apologies, we now move into Johnson's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item for your consideration is our December committee meetings. We're requesting that all 4 committees be held on Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, and beginning at 8:30 here at the Government Complex.
Thoughts on that, ladies? Gentlemen?
Good idea.
Let's do it.
Make a motion to do that.
Second.
We can just continue to sit here in silence. So moved. Next, please, sir. Or ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yep.
It just blinked.
I have several items for your review, several bid items. The first one is a bid for the purchase of a Ford Transit Connect van for our Procurement Department. This is a replacement vehicle. We had 2 responders, and we are recommending that we allow Allen J. Automotive to provide this vehicle. They were the lowest bidder at $22,721. It was slightly under budget.
Move to consent.
The next one is...
Wait 1 second, ma'am.
Sorry.
Second, but I have a question. On the vans and stuff, and I'm still learning and figuring stuff out. So if it's a replacement vehicle, what happens to the one that we're taking out of service?
We surplus it.
Surplus.
Okay, sell it, okay.
We often
That
sell it.
included in the price of this? You subtracted off the price? That just goes to a different fund?
We have a fleet replacement fund, a separate fund, and any surplus vehicles, except for like enterprise funds like the water utility or stormwater, the money from the surplus goes into that fund, and it helps with maintenance of the existing fleet.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you, sorry.
No, good.
Learning.
No, good question. We did get a second there, right?
Oh, second, yes.
Yes, ma'am. So now.
Okay. The next item is the bid for the purchase of some SUVs for the tax assessor's office. They have budgeted 2 vehicles. I believe these are for new positions that were included in the budget this year.
Everybody get a car? Tax commissioner? Tax what?
Tax assessors. These are the people that are out in the field that are doing the
Oh, okay, I got you.
assessments.
Gotcha.
We had 3 responders for this bid, and again, we would like to award the bid to Allen J. Automotive. at the price of $41,432, which is, again, slightly under budget.
Consent.
Question, so we had a selection of vehicles that we were willing to take bids on, because you got 3 different things there, the Compass, the Escape, and the Tucson.
Yes,
We
I
were just-
believe we just.
As long as it was a
decided
small
it.
SUV, I guess, we were just, okay.
Is that correct, Glenn?
Wondering what kind of parameters we had there. All righty, ma'am, next.
The next item is the purchase of a compact tractor with loader for our stormwater department. This is a new tractor. We had 2 responders, and we would like to award the bid to Blanchard Equipment. It will be for a John Deere tractor at the cost of $23,147.04. Again, slightly under budget.
What do we need it for?
That's right.
We consent.
Second.
So moved.
The next item is the purchase of full-size SUVs, and these are for both the sheriff's office and the magistrate court. We only had 1 responder, and sometimes when we issue these bids, we do it as a package, not necessarily just for one department. You know, we'll have multiple departments or multiple types of vehicles. So in this case, we had 1 response, but it was only for the sheriff's office. No one responded for the magistrate court, and the one for the sheriff's office did not meet specs. So our staff went back out and looked at our contract holders that we negotiate prices with, and we would like to award the 3 for the sheriff's office. Well, we would like to purchase them under the Florida Sheriff's Association contract, and the 1 for the magistrate court under the state contract. The sheriff's office would go to Allen J. Automotive, and then Wade Ford would provide the 1 for magistrate court. And again, these are under budget.
Situations like this, if I heard you correctly, we put a bid out and nobody responded. It would go to folks that negotiate with them. Do we ever start locally?
Well, it's not that we go and negotiate. We're part of these purchasing alliances that have already been negotiated, like the state of Georgia has negotiated through the state contract, or the Florida Sheriff's Association. They're already negotiated, and we are, I guess you could say, members or participants within those organizations and those contracts. And so we can purchase from them and
We couldn't do
enjoy
that
the,
local- We couldn't reach out to the local folks, is what you're saying?
not at this price, because it was over the threshold. We have to either bid or go through negotiated contracts.
That comes up periodically, and we always ask about it, and every once in a while, I think we do ask you guys just to check the waters out there, and it's never even close.
If we don't bid it and we want to do the state contract, we always get quotes from local areas, do we not? Yes.
And I was just referring
But
to
in this
nobody
case, we bid it.
And you had, and it sounded like we had to initiate. That's what I thought I heard you say.
No, we just look back at the contracts that we currently participate in that are negotiated. I may have said that wrong.
Move to consent.
Second.
All right. And next,
The-
bill bond vehicles.
The next bid, the more interesting one, this one included 8 different types of vehicles. And we received 2 responses for all 8 types. However, number 7, the 2 responses we received, 1 of them did not meet specs, so we were down to just 1 response. That response was way over budget, like $8,000 per vehicle, and I think there were 5 vehicles within that grouping. So basically, we want to reject the bid for number 7 and rebid it. But the others that are listed here, we would like to award the bid, the first, I guess, 6 of them to Allen J. Automotive, and then the last one, the Ford F-450 to O.C. Welch Ford Lincoln.
So some of them didn't meet specs.
The one for number 7, which
Oh,
was
okay.
the 1-ton trucks, I think. Yes, we had 5 1-ton service body trucks. One of them did not meet specs, and the other one was way over budget, so we
Okay.
would like to reject that bid, and we'll rebid it later.
Michael, why does broadband need 2 more trucks?
We have 2 new employees, one splicer that'll be going into the field, or the outside plant construction manager. All over the county for all the projects that we've got ongoing.
Motion to accept.
Move to consent, second.
So move to consent.
Words.
All right.
Got it.
Juvenile Court Independence Contractor Agreement.
Yes, the next two items are actually related. The first one is the contract for Kathleen Connor. She is currently, we currently have a contract with her to provide guardian ad litem services. She is now being, that contract is being enhanced to include the independent prosecutor for the Children in Need of Services, the CHINS program. The person that was in that role has stepped out and will take on another role, which is the next item. So she's currently being paid $24,000 a year. This contract will be for $35,000 a year, so it's an increase of $11,000. However, the other gentleman was making $25,000, so there's a savings of $14,000 by doing it this way.
Move to consent quickly.
Second.
Well, don't really go ahead.
Yeah, because we're going to keep that savings in this next item.
So moved. So moving on.
The next item is to appoint Charles Evans as the Associate Juvenile Court Judge. We did get an order from Judge Flanagan appointing this individual to be the Associate Judge. He would like to provide a salary of $50,000. So we can use the $14,000 that I mentioned previously, but we need another $36,000 to fund this. So staff is recommending that we move funds from contingency into the juvenile court budget to fund this.
$50,000 salary, is that what's split between the counties, or is that our share?
It will be, so Richmond County will get 57% of that, Burke County will get 7%. That will come back into the general fund in the form of a revenue. I did not net that out because it's on the revenue side. We still need the money in their expense budget to cover this. But yes, we will get increased revenues.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved. Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other items for this committee? Seeing none. Legal matters, sir? And we've got a couple of reports. Personnel savings?
Just the first item, pretty glaring report. As you can see, our personnel savings to date are already $275,000 of our budget goal of $350,000. A lot of this has to do with the fact that we added new positions at the beginning of the year, and we've been trying to fill those positions, and still struggling in some cases to fill certain positions, but just for your information.
For 275.
275, 260.
Questions?
Just a request, Scott, just at some point, can you give us an update, not right now, but just on the open positions that, where we stand with those, because frankly, I don't remember.
Yep. It's easy.
All right, we'll take that for information then. Internal Services, the budget reports.
Yes, the first item I have for you is the year-to-date budget report. This is through the month of August. We should be operating around 17%. I have listed some of the major funds for your review. It's still very early in the process, but everyone is operating well.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Lost.
Yes, your favorite report. We have received revenues for the month of July. That check was just over $2 million.
Boom.
We are now operating at, or we have collected, well, we are increasing at 8.02% annually.
Very good.
Long time coming. Any questions or comments about Lost? And the investment report, ma'am.
Yes, the investment report is attached just for your review. It shows the excess funds and how they're being invested and the rates of return.
Do we cut the checks to Harlem and Grovetown out of what we get, or do they get their own direct?
We do for the
Sales
SPOS piece, but not for the local option piece. It goes directly to them for that.
So all SPLOST comes through us, all lost goes. All right. Any other comments regarding internal services or Commissioner of Public comments for this Body? Seeing none, we have one personnel matter. What is your pleasure? In executive session.
Move it on to the
Let's do
full
it in
board.
public.
When do y'all pick me a motion?
Yeah, we'll move it to the full board.
I make a motion, we move it to the full board.
All right, so it moves on to the full board. Seeing nothing else before this committee, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Calling to order the meeting of the Development and Engineering Services Committee for Tuesday, September 10th, having a full quorum and having already done our pledge and invocation, would like to ask for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Changes to the agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a couple items for your consideration. One be item I-2A. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 18 regarding the wireless infrastructure in our right-of-way. This is to get us in line with state law by the time the state law takes effect. And then we would ask that we delete item I-1C1. This is an alcoholic beverage license that the applicant is requesting that we not take up.
So noted. Do we have any presentations from the public? Having none, nothing for the consent agenda. Let's move directly into the debate agenda, new business. Mr. Slaughter, please.
Thank you, ma'am. First one I have for you is the underground power easement for the Performing Arts Center from Georgia Power, and staff's recommend approval.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved.
Next one I have for you is change order number 1 for the sheriff's pre-engineered metal building that we're currently under construction for. We realized we had transposed numbers on the roll-up doors instead of 14 by 16, it should have been 16 by 14. And then we also beefed up some footings and added some conduit and some rebar for a phase 2 build out that the sheriff's gonna undertake. This amounts to a change order of $4,560. Staff's recommend approval.
Move to consent.
Second.
And where do the funds come from?
That is actually a project.
Geobond.
Geobond.
Geobond project.
Very good. So moved. Next.
Next one, this is change order number 1 for the Grovetown Library. There is no money involved in this. However, it does add 19 days based on some additional work that we had them do as part of the allowances. That is broken down. We had a septic tank that we had to deal with, a pool that was found underground that we had to deal with. That's some earthwork and time, so staff's recommend adding those 19 days.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved. Next.
Change order 2 for the Harlem Library, this is a deduct change order in the amount of $582.40. That's money we will not be spending, we're keeping that, but we do add 41 days to the contract. This project is complete, it did come in under the original time, however, record keeping, we just need to approve this time extension and deduct change order. Staff's recommend approval.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved. Engineering services?
First I have for you is the Blue Ridge Drive at Panther Crossing intersection improvements. Staff received a $300,000 grant from GDOT. Part of that money was spent upgrading handicap ramps throughout the county. The remaining money will be spent to install a traffic signal at the corner, at the intersection of Panther Drive and Blue Ridge. We do have a match. That match will be used, will be met with using staff's time for design. Staff's recommending approval of these quotes in the amount of $199,990.50.
And this is coming from LMIG money, correct?
This is grant money from GDOT. So this is GDOT money that was given to us to improve roads that are not part of their system.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved.
Next I have for you is speed hump installation on Macks Road. We did receive a request to do the study. 85th percentile speed came to be 42 miles per hour, and the ADT was met as well. Staff is recommending approval.
Consent.
Second.
Commissioner Galius, this is your district, I believe. Is this something that was, people were screaming for this? Have you heard anything about it?
Got a request. Try to make them aware.
Very good. So moved. Next.
Next I have for you is a proposed safety light at Washington Road and Spooner Road. It does meet the criteria for installation. We do have a cost of $218.04 upfront. Operating cost, and the upfront pole cost of $374.57. Staff's recommend approval.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved.
Next I have for you is a request for the chairman to sign the annual CRS recertification form. This is basically the form saying we are doing all the things we say we're doing to get the reduced flood insurance rates for the county. We are working on continuing to lower that rating so we can get even bigger insurance discounts, but at this time we just need the chairman to sign saying we're doing what we say we're doing.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved.
Next I have for you is a AT&T facility reimbursement agreement for Gateway Boulevard extension. This is an existing AT&T line that was crossing through that property. We purchased the right-of-way to build our road. It does require us to pay AT&T $28,630. We are having some disagreements on the document, so staff and legal are still reviewing it, still kind of hashing that out. So we're asking for chairman to sign contingent upon staff and legal agreeing to the language in that document. Yeah, so today I just need.
Move to consent.
Second.
And after you add the legal fees on it, it's gonna be like 48,000?
I think he's doing it pro bono. I think.
Saying. So moved. Next.
Next one I have for you is acceptance of improvements for Westlake Commons easement plat, Mullins Colony easement plat, Purbeck Lane subdivision, and a release of bond for Willow Oak Village 6. Staff is recommending acceptance of those easement plats. Once the deed is recorded, the one-year warranty will begin.
Consent.
Second.
These are all standard,
They're improvements that were built by private developers, and they're being deeded to the county.
nothing special about any of them.
No, ma'am.
Good. So moved. Development services, alcohol licenses.
All right, the first license I have here is the alcohol beverage license for Pie Land II, doing business as Your Pie. Your Pie has applied for an alcohol beverage license for selling of beer and wine for on-premise consumption at 7025 Evans Town Center Boulevard, Unit 100. They have provided all the required information needed, and staff recommends approval of this license.
Is that the Maybon building?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Move to
Excellent.
consent quickly.
Second.
Excellent. So moved. Next.
All right, the second one we have is the alcohol beverage license for Concert Westlake LLC, doing business as Westlake Country Club. Westlake Country Club applied for an alcohol beverage license to sell beer, wine, beer, wine, and distilled spirit for on-premise consumption at 3556 Westlake Drive. They have provided all the required information, and staff recommends approval of the license at October 1st BOC meeting.
Is this a renewal or a change of name? Why, Westlake already had a license.
That's my,
Manager.
So it's just a formality, change of name, okay.
Move to consent.
All right, so move, next.
all right, the next one, we have the building standard inspector compensation requirement change. Back in 2018, we brought an item to you all for pay established, directed by the certifications that the inspectors acquire each time. Right now, we have too many inspectors reporting directly to the manager, and we're needing to put some field inspectors as the field managers in place there. And this just provides us to have a position to put them and compensating them at 5% for the additional duties that they will take on in the field. Staff recommends approval.
Y'all are the HR guys, I'm in on you for this.
5% above those of the same.
Right. If you come in at a grade 20 at the base pay, you'll be compensated at 5% above that because the people under you will actually be coming in at base rate.
How many folks are you talking about moving?
It's working out to 3 on one field inspector and 4 on another.
Second.
So moved, next.
All right, the next item is the fire marshal inspector compensation requirements. This is the same scenario we have, except there's not quite as many inspectors here. And we're just requesting that this be put into place so we have it in writing where we have 5% compensation for the supervisor position.
Same type deal, 3 to 1,
Exactly,
4 to
yes,
1.
sir. Yes.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved. Next.
All right, and the next one is reclassification from administrative specialist to a CSR 3. The current vacant administrative specialist position is in the License and Permits Department, needs to be reclassified as a CSR 3 at pay grade 17 at $13.83 per hour to line up with all the other CSRs doing the same work. The admin specialist position was making $19.49 per hour at a grade 20. Like I said, this will result in actually savings of $9,771.42 by reclassifying this position. If you reclassify that, the next year's pay, if you were to bring them in at the base pay at the grade 20, it actually results in a $4,534.40 pay savings.
The grade 20 person left.
Right.
When you refill it, you're gonna refill it at a grade 17.
Correct.
Move to consent.
Second.
So moved.
All right, next one is, bear with me here, this is gonna take a little while. All right, this is the Reorganization, License and Permits Department. Staff has evaluated the workload of the License Permit Department. Currently, the License Permits Manager 5 position is overseeing licensing and permits, which consist of alcohol license, massage operator's license, occupation tax, business license, building permits, building inspections. Currently, there are 4 employees and a vacant position that fall under this position. The proposed organization of this department will be to separate the building permits and building inspections away from the rest of the licensing. The licensing and permits manager position would be renamed to licensing manager and moved entirely to the general fund and proposed alcohol license, massage operator's license, occupation tax, and business license. The current CSRs will be 75% general fund and 25% building standards fund. The CSR will report directly to the licensing manager position and work on processing licensing, proposed licensing mentioned previously. CSR would also help issue building permits when needed. With the staffing the way it is, our higher level of OC taxes in the renewal season, those 4 months, they will definitely be sharing some duties there. The remaining position under the licensing permit supervisor would process all permits and building inspections. Licensing and permit supervisor would be renamed to permit supervisor and report directly to the building standards manager. Making these changes will increase the cost of the general fund. The manager 5 position will be an increase to the general fund in the amount of $24,720.23. The CSR position would increase the general fund in the amount of $29,557.48, which combines to a $54,277.71 increase to the general fund. Staff recommends approval of the reorganization.
What was that bottom line number?
$54,277.71 to the general fund.
If I can add one piece to this, I think one thing that we need to be very cognizant of is when you have two funds working in the same department, so we can't mingle building standards funds and general fund money. And what we do is we typically associate duties. So if somebody has 75% of their time allocated to one job, we allocate 75% of their funds to that funding source. But what we're seeing is those roles have changed a little bit, and we want to make sure that we stay very much in tune with the fund paying the position for the job that's being done. What we don't ever want to do is have a situation where the building standards fund is paying for general fund work to be done. So that's a big reason for this reorganization. There is no change in anybody's salaries. This is just us looking at the amount of work that's being done for each person and trying to make it trying to make it equitable.
So this is a total, just moving money from one pot to the
Correct.
other, not adding heads.
That's correct. That's correct.
Question, actually, we're not adding heads.
We're not adding heads, and nobody's getting a raise out of this. This is just a matter of us moving duties and responsibilities into the correct funds and funding them the correct way.
This all we've done several time studies to ensure like Scott said, we're compensated out of the right funding. And like I said, Ms. Hall has, over the years that she's been here, the workload has increased tremendously. She's put in some long hours, and this hopefully will help her so that she's not too overburdened in her area. So.
Okay.
I'm confused. I thought we were adding somebody here.
No.
So currently we have a licensing and permit manager, and they're gonna be renamed licensing manager and just do the general alcohol license kind of stuff.
Right.
So who's going to do
The supervisor that's over licensing permit now, she would report directly to the building manager, which falls in line with all the permitting and the inspections that are done.
And all that falls under the building standards fund.
The previous vacant position you just voted on, that position would slide underneath the licensing manager. So there's no additional heads, like Scott said, there's no additional heads. It's just moving two employees under licensing, maintaining the rest under permits.
everybody would still have their same desks, the same
Correct.
area working in? It's
Correct.
just for
Correct.
Move to
numbers.
Cleaning up where the funds are, where they're being paid from.
Okay,
I second it.
all right, so moved. We have any other items, Scarberry?
You had that one that was added.
All right, who's in charge of that one?
Take that one.
All right,
This one is ordinance 19-14. This is amending Chapter 18, Article X. This is actually a complete rewrite of that ordinance. This is why you don't have a red line. We actually took the one that was in place and is being replaced with this new one. Senate Bill 66 was passed that basically drew out what counties and municipalities could and could not do when it came to wireless infrastructure in right-of-ways. So between Mr. Johnson, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Scarberry, myself, and of course Mr. Driver, put together, Mr. Driver actually put this together for us based on some direction that we gave them. Basically, we were following state law. They put so many restrictions on what we could and couldn't do, what we can and can't charge. Found it was best just to have our ordinance say we're following state law. They dictate our fees, they dictate when we can say no.
Small cell bill, right?
Small cell. That's it. Staff's recommending approval of this. State law goes into effect October 1st, which will be the second reading of this ordinance. They will line up exactly together.
Move to debate.
Second, 20 pages to say we're following state law? All right.
move to debate. Any other items up for discussion? Legal matters? Thank you. Any staff reports, development
All right,
services?
staff reports is your August Development Services report attached for your information. If question, I'll be glad to address those.
Being none, moving on.
Second, so our residential permits are still down.
They're still down over last year, but they are coming back, and the plans that we've been receiving in for review have increased. So they're typically trailing, and that's the way it's going to be. But everybody's happy. The builders are happy they're getting the lots on the ground that they can start pulling permits on.
Questions? Financial report?
All right, the financial report for August is in attached copy for your information. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those. Fund balance is still, Ms. Reed talked with Ms. Reese, still showing in excess of what's actually there, and hopefully Munis will catch up and get us those correct numbers, which is around the 2.3 mark instead of 5.
There was one stat, I know you probably saw this, but I know this commission has been very concerned about being business-friendly. You'll notice that our OC taxes are up, so we're actually adding businesses to the.
And that will translate into sales tax?
We hope. That's right.
Keep that 8% growth and we're good.
Right.
Year over year, just keep that 8% rolling. Good place.
Any other questions on that?
Next
Alcohol
item we
ban?
have is the August temporary alcohol permits. Copy of those are in there for your information.
Discussion or conflicts we need to know about on any of those?
None that I'm aware of.
No questions.
Planning services?
Yes, ma'am. The next two, the first one is the plan review workload monthly report.
More plan reviews than highest number for the year?
We're seeing a lot of work come in.
Oh, that was the final plats.
Final plats means permits,
Correct.
why you're seeing the permit numbers increase.
All right.
The next one is the planning department workload. Everything's been happening. Be happy to answer any questions.
No questions.
None. Are there any other commissioners' comments? Public comments? None. We have nothing for executive session, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All brand new.